My parents refused to attend my wedding because I got married before my perfect sister. Now their flawless family image is falling apart. I am 32 years old, and for 8 months, I have been a married woman. My wedding day was supposed to be a celebration of love and a new beginning, a day filled with joy and the support of those closest to me. And for the most part, it was. The ceremony was beautiful, the love between my husband and me was palpable, and our friends and extended family were there to share in our happiness. Everyone was there, in fact, except for the 3 people whose absence created a void that was felt by everyone in attendance, my parents and my sister Molin. My parents' decision to skip their own daughter's wedding was startling, a profound betrayal that cut deeper than I wanted to admit. My sister Molin's absence, however, was less of a shock. At 30 years old, we have never really gotten along. We are fundamentally different people, and our relationship has been a strained cord for as long as I can remember. Yet, considering our family's history, I suppose I should have anticipated it all along. To understand the magnitude of their absence, you need some background on our family dynamics. I can't completely blame my parents for their constant favoring of Molin, because throughout her life, she has made it exceptionally easy for them. She has been spectacularly good at almost everything she ever attempted. From the moment she could walk, Molin was the center of attention in every room she entered. In elementary school, she wasn't just a participant in spelling bees and science fairs, she was the champion. Every talent show was a platform for her success. This pattern continued unabated through high school, where she seamlessly accumulated the titles of class president, valedictorian, and prom queen. She is tall, slender, and possessed of a classic beauty that made her a natural for modeling, which she pursued while simultaneously working on her business degree in college. I can still vividly remember the celebration my parents threw when she landed her first modeling job during her sophomore year. They invited our entire extended family and all of her friends to a lavish party. Her first professional headshot was framed in an ornate silver frame and hung in a place of honor in our living room, directly above the fireplace, where it remains to this day. The same year I received my degree in computer science, a field I was genuinely passionate about, their reaction was a study in indifference. They merely murmured a quiet, "Well done," before immediately turning their attention back to organizing Molin's next photo session or a new casting call. After graduating, Molin immediately climbed the corporate ladder at a prominent company. By the age of 30, she had secured a corner office, a corporate car, and the title of senior executive. Meanwhile, I built a career for myself as a mid-level software developer at a respectable tech company. I am proud of my work. It is challenging, creative, and provides a good life. But it is not the kind of high-profile, glamorous profession that makes parents boast in front of the family. The comparisons were not limited to our careers. Physically, I am built differently from my sister, shorter and with a cavia more substantial frame. My mother never missed an opportunity to comment on this. While I was growing up, she made crude remarks about my appearance, signed me up for workout classes I didn't want to attend, and constantly put me on restrictive diets. "Molin never struggles with her weight," she would say with a sigh. Or, "You could look as nice as your sister if you just put in a little more effort." I learned to armor myself against these comments by the time I reached high school, but the damage was done over years of repetition. The message was clear. I was not enough as I was. Over time, I came to accept these distinctions. I ultimately came to terms with the fact that my parents never took as much delight in my accomplishments as they did in Molin's. What was my other option? For years, I tried desperately to win their approval. I attended the classes they recommended, joined the clubs they encouraged, and in a moment of particular desperation, even attempted modeling for a short time, a spectacular failure that my sister never lets me forget. Yet, no matter what I did, it was never sufficient. I was merely the second daughter, and they were completely enamored with my sister's achievements. Sometime in my mid-20s, a sense of clarity and exhaustion washed over me. I gave up trying to impress them. I made a conscious decision to stop chasing their validation and instead focus on creating my own life. I concentrated on growing professionally on my own terms and, most importantly, on forming deep, meaningful bonds with individuals who respected and valued me for who I am, not for who they thought I should be. To be honest, following that decision, my life improved dramatically. Knowing that my parents were constantly concerned with maintaining appearances, I kept my interactions with them superficial to prevent conflict. During our mandatory Christmas meals and sparse family get-togethers, I would simply nod and smile while they raved about Mullen's latest promotion, new lover, or exotic vacation spot. Since they had Mullen to swoon over, they didn't seem to notice my emotional distance. It was a peaceful, if lonely, détente. Then, my life truly began. I met my husband at a computer conference through a mutual friend. From the very beginning, he was different. He saw me, in a way my family never had. He loved my dry sense of humor, was impressed by my ability to code, and, yes, he adored my body type. He never once suggested I should change or made unfavorable comparisons to other people. He made me feel cherished for exactly who I was. After 4 years of dating, he proposed. It was a perfect, intimate moment, just the two of us alone at home, enjoying takeout with our favorite TV show playing softly in the background. It was flawless because it was so authentically us. Naturally, I told my parents I was engaged last year. My first clue that something was amiss should have been their response. There were no shouts of congratulations, no tears of joy, only a heavy, uncomfortable stillness. My mother then broke the silence by questioning whether I was certain I wanted to jump right in. She suggested, with a concerned frown, that I might want to improve my physical condition before the wedding. My father, for his part, said very little at all. During our engagement party, my husband was the first to note their odd reaction, which I was too anxious and hopeful to fully comprehend at the time. He pointed out how they spent the majority of the evening crouched in a corner over my mother's phone. He later informed me that he had overheard them talking to Mullen, who was clearly crying on the other end of the line. He vaguely heard them saying, "This wasn't the plan," and "We never expected Rebecca to get married first." The wedding planning process was met with similar resistance. Despite not even being engaged at the time, my mother had already created multiple, elaborate wedding Pinterest boards for Mullen and showed no interest in assisting me with selecting a dress or a venue. When I found my dress, a straightforward yet exquisite A-line gown that made me feel truly beautiful, my mother merely remarked that it was practical and suitable for my figure. In the end, my future mother-in-law, who treated me like the daughter she never had, stepped in. Together, we worked on the majority of the preparations. She was a godsend, offering not just help, but genuine excitement and warmth. I was meticulous with the guest list, reviewing and double-checking it with my spouse to ensure no one was overlooked. We sent out both electronic and paper invitations. I am certain my parents received theirs. The electronic invitations included read receipts. When I realized they hadn't RSVP'd, I called, texted, and emailed them several times. My messages were either ignored entirely or met with evasive responses stating that they were very busy and needed to check their schedules. I couldn't waste too much energy worrying about it. I was consumed with the joyful chaos of preparing for my wedding. My in-laws were incredibly helpful, offering assistance with everything from seating maps to floral arrangements. Even at the lovely bridal shower hosted by my husband's sister, the painfully obvious absence of my own family was a silent, aching presence that everyone kindly chose not to mention. The wedding day itself was beautiful. We held a laid-back afternoon celebration in a sun-drenched garden after a heartfelt morning ceremony. Everyone told us we looked radiantly content and deeply in love, and they were right. For most of the day, I was swept up in the joy. But there were moments, sharp, piercing moments, when their absence felt like a physical anguish. When I walked down the aisle and saw the 2 front-row seats sitting starkly empty. When the time came for the father-daughter dance, and I stood alone on the edge of the dance floor, watching other couples sway together. The pain in those moments was a fresh wound. After the honeymoon, I sought answers. When I eventually reached them on the phone, they offered a startling excuse. They claimed they were deeply hurt, that they had never received a formal invitation. My mother launched into a lengthy tirade about how careless I was, how she had always dreamed of helping to organize her daughter's wedding, and how she couldn't comprehend why I would leave them out of such a significant occasion. I was utterly perplexed. I was positive we had sent them both kinds of invitations. During the call, I verified our records and even the delivery confirmation for the physical invitation. They were attempting to gaslight me, to rewrite history to make themselves the victims. I didn't have the energy to confront them about it. I simply said I was sorry for the error, and hung up, my hands trembling. It was my husband who later connected the dots, pointing out a pattern I had been too close to see. The way they seemed surprised rather than delighted when we announced our engagement. Their constant excuses during the planning process. Their preoccupation with Molin's distress. The pattern was clear, and it was devastating. The idea that I, the less successful daughter, was getting married before their beloved Molin was simply too much for them to bear. My wedding day, which should have been a celebration of my happiness, had become yet another front in their never-ending war to preserve their ideal family image, with Molin at its pristine core. Recently, the family gossip mill has churned out new developments. Molin is now engaged to someone she's been dating for about a year. In the family group chats I mostly ignore, my parents are openly expressing their excitement about organizing an elaborate, lavish wedding for her. They are already boasting about securing upscale locations and luxury gowns. My mother is taking Molin to private fittings at elite boutiques. All the mother-daughter time I was explicitly denied. The most intriguing twist, however, is that a significant number of our relatives are suddenly refusing to attend Molin's engagement party and wedding. It appears my parents' actions at my wedding did not go unnoticed and have become a topic of quiet conversation within the family. When relatives ask me why my parents weren't there, I don't embellish or attempt to win sympathy. I simply state the facts as I perceive them. They couldn't bear it when I married before their beloved daughter. My parents got in touch with me a few days ago, furious. They accused me of purposefully trying to spoil Molin's wedding. According to their claims, the relatives they've spoken to are using my story as their reason for avoiding her wedding festivities. My cousin, who is close to Molin, informed me that people are reluctant to attend because they've heard about my parents' blatant favoritism and their cruel absence from my wedding. My parents, however, see it differently. They claim that because I'm envious of my sister's impending lavish wedding, I'm spreading false stories to sabotage it. The problem for them is that I'm only telling people the truth about what happened. Perhaps they should consider their own conduct instead of blaming me for the consequences. If the truth makes them look terrible, that is a reflection on their actions, not my narration of them. As things continue to change, I'm finding it harder and harder to maintain the facade of a relationship with my parents. Their behavior during my wedding finally made it clear to me that I would never be sufficient for them, regardless of what I did. The most difficult aspect is no longer their absence on my wedding day. It is the final, sobering act of coming to terms with the fact that I never had the kind, encouraging parents I always desired. I am now concentrating on creating a life with someone who genuinely appreciates me for who I am. My husband is my family. Our home is my sanctuary. And for the first time, I am at peace with the idea that the family I was born into may not be the family that defines my future. First update, the confrontation. 2 weeks have passed since my original post, and the outpouring of support and insightful comments from this community has been overwhelming. Thank you. Your words gave me the courage I needed to take a step I had been avoiding for a lifetime. I ultimately made the decision to speak with my parents face-to-face over a video call about their actions and their current accusations that I am ruining my sister's special day. I needed to put everything on the table for my own sanity. As expected, the conversation began with them on the offensive. The moment the call connected, they started reiterating their accusations, insisting I was jealous of Molin and had orchestrated this entire situation to hurt her. But this time, I did something I had never done before. I agreed with them, though not in the way they anticipated. Instead of defending myself, as I usually would, I looked at them through the screen and said, "You're correct. I am envious, but not of Molin's career, not her accomplishments, and not her appearance. I'm envious of the unwavering love and support you've shown her, which you never even made an effort to show me." There was a stunned pause on the line. Then, my mother began her well-rehearsed defense, claiming I was exaggerating and that they had always treated us equally. Something inside me broke at that moment. A dam holding back decades of repressed hurt gave way, and everything came flooding out. I spoke with a calm clarity that surprised even me. I informed them of specific, searing memories. The birthday parties where a phone call about Molin's latest success would eclipse my celebration. The time my mother canceled my high school graduation dinner because Molin had a modeling callback. The year her prom outfit cost more than the total of my college textbooks. I continued, despite my father's attempts to cut me off by accusing me of rehashing ancient history. I talked about the unique pain of watching them spend years enthusiastically planning my sister's fictitious wedding while showing not a flicker of interest in my own. I described the visceral ache of seeing their empty seats and how my mother-in-law had to step in to help me with everything, from wedding preparations to buying my dress. Their reaction was more instructive than any apology could have been. They didn't accept a single one of my arguments. They simply flipped the narrative back onto me. "Why did you never speak up if you felt this way?" my mother insisted, as if my childhood attempts to share my art or my report cards had never happened. My father followed, "By discussing these private family matters with our relatives, you're being unjust and spiteful." Then, my mother said something that finally clarified everything, a statement that laid their entire worldview bare. "We never imagined you'd go to such lengths as to try to ruin Molin's wedding out of spite," she stated, her voice cold. "But we always knew you were insecure about her success. This is not how we brought you up." In that moment, I became acutely aware that they weren't even hearing me. They were not processing my pain or acknowledging their role in it. They were analyzing my emotions as a tactical problem related to Molin's reaction. They were more worried about her impending nuptials than the profound hurt they had caused me, their daughter. For the first time in my life, I didn't attempt to make things better. I didn't retract my statements or apologize for my feelings. Rather, I delivered my final words to them. "You're correct on one point. I was raised by you. You instilled in me the belief that I would never measure up, that Molin's accomplishments would always be more significant than mine, that upholding your ideal family image was more essential than my feelings. However, you also taught me something you didn't mean to teach me, that I deserve better than this." There was another long pause before my father spoke, his voice chillingly cool and collected. "Maybe it's time for us to stop acting like we're bad parents since you've already determined that we are. And you obviously take pleasure in seeing us suffer. Since you are family, we assumed you would assist in resolving this issue, but it is clear that you have made your own decisions." The final blow was delivered by my mother. "Perhaps you simply couldn't cope with not being the center of attention for once, Rebecca. Even though we always tried to treat you both fairly, that's not our fault. You made the decision to play the victim." I refrained from arguing. What would be the point? Everything I had been saying had just been validated by their own words. They were utterly incapable of admitting their involvement in any of it. I had given them my truth, and they had handed me back their delusion. I simply said, "Goodbye," and hung up the phone. I was surprised to feel an immense wave of relief after the call. Yes, there were tears, but they weren't the frantic, heartbreaking sobs I remembered from my early years. They were liberating tears. For the first time, I had expressed everything I needed to say without holding back or feeling guilty. The truth was finally out in the open between us, and I had survived it. Later, my husband found me sitting quietly on our back porch, gazing at the sunset. He sat next to me and grasped my hand without saying a word. After a long silence, I asked him the question that had been forming in my mind. "They're never going to change, are they?" He squeezed my hand gently. "No," he said, his voice soft but firm. "But you have, and that is what counts." He is correct. I have changed. The young child who frantically tried to win her parents' approval is no longer there. The woman who emerged from that last conversation no longer needs their validation. Although acknowledging that my parents will never be the people I need them to be is painful, it is not as painful as holding out hope that they would change. For the first time, I don't really care what happens with my sister's wedding or the ensuing family drama. I've had my say. They now have to deal with the consequences of their actions. The most peculiar aspect is that I feel as though a burden I've carried my entire life has finally been lifted. It's not the happy ending I had naively hoped for with my parents, but perhaps it was the one I needed all along, the ability to quit striving for a love that ought to have come naturally. Second update, my sister's miscalculation. 3 days have passed since my final confrontation with our parents, and things have taken a surprising and rather illuminating turn. Molin, unable to stay on the sidelines, decided to become involved in the drama. Her strategy, however, failed horribly. Yesterday morning, I received a thoughtfully composed but thoroughly condescending text message from my sister. The tone was one she had perfected over the years, a blend of moral superiority and covert jabs disguised as concern. "What you said to our parents was totally inappropriate," she began. They have helped us through every stage of our lives and given us everything. You cannot simply blame them for being poor parents because you are insecure about the decisions you have made in your life. She continued, I understand that your wedding wasn't exactly what you had envisioned, but that doesn't mean you should try to destroy mine. There's nothing wrong with wanting a celebration that honors those of us who have put in a lot of effort to meet specific standards, Rebecca. Not everything needs to be a contest. I didn't bother to craft a response. I've discovered over years of experience that engaging with her merely provides more ammunition for her manipulative narrative. After a moment of looking at the message, I felt a strange sense of calm. I simply blocked her number. Molen, however, has never been one to tolerate being ignored. I assumed blocking her would be the end of it, but I underestimated her persistence. A few hours later, I received a frantic call from my husband at work. He was laughing so hard he could barely speak. Molen, apparently unable to reach me directly, had somehow found his personal cell number, probably through a mutual acquaintance or professional network, and had sent him a string of increasingly unhinged texts. Her initial message to him was deceptively professional. As Rebecca's sister and someone who cares deeply about our family's well-being, I feel compelled to reach out. It quickly devolved from there. She informed my husband that, as the new man in Rebecca's life, he had an obligation to help her behave in a more suitable manner. The messages became increasingly patronizing. Family dynamics are complex, she told my husband, a highly respected professional software architect with an MBA. Someone with Rebecca's sensitivity might not understand the bigger picture. She advised him to assist me in seeing reason before I irreparably harm family relationships. The true kicker, though, was her attempt to play on what she believed to be his social climbing impulses. She wrote, Surely you understand that maintaining good relationships with successful family members like myself could be beneficial for your future. Rebecca's behavior is only hurting her own prospects and, by extension, yours. My husband, who has always been able to see through Molen's facade, found her attempt at manipulation utterly hilarious. He was particularly amused by her presumption that her corporate rank or the prospect of vague networking opportunities would somehow impress him. In his own words, she really doesn't know me at all, does she? We went over the messages together when I got home that night. Instead of feeling offended or upset, I found myself laughing with him. Seeing Molen's deceptive methods exposed so blatantly, especially when they were aimed at someone who was completely impervious to them, was incredibly liberating. This encounter taught me something significant about my sister. For all her achievements and success, she is still that insecure adolescent who needs to tear others down in order to feel superior. It's clear how little she understands about genuine relationships if she believed she could control me by manipulating my husband. The most revealing aspect was her tactical shift. When her direct approach with me failed, she swiftly turned to trying to use my husband against me. It was a classic move. She used to do precisely that in high school. When she was unable to bully me directly, she would attempt to turn my friends against me. Different decade, same strategies. With this fresh perspective, I now understand that Molen's actions went far beyond simple sibling rivalry. Throughout our childhood, she made a concerted, active effort to maintain her status as the favorite child. She always had to overshadow my accomplishments, always had to point out my shortcomings to our parents and my friends. It was a game to her, and she was determined to be the sole winner. My response to her games is different now. 10 years ago, those messages would have sent me into a spiral of self-doubt and hurt. 5 years ago, I would have been furious and engaged in a draining argument. Today, I am simply tired of the drama and find her blatant attempts at manipulation almost amusing. My husband's response to her was ideal. Rather than becoming embroiled in her nonsense, he simply wrote back, Thank you for your concern about Rebecca's well-being. As her husband, I'm focused on supporting her happiness, not managing her behavior. I think it's best if you direct any future concerns to Rebecca directly. Have a nice day. Molen, not receiving the reaction she wanted, sent one last telling message. I see she's poisoned you against the family too. Don't say I didn't try to help when this all blows up in your faces. The irony is profound. Molen's attempt to help has further strengthened my resolve to keep my distance from my family's destructive dynamics. Her messages to my spouse confirmed that nothing has changed. She is still the same cunning individual who feels the need to dictate every narrative and who perceives any deviation from her ideal family script as a personal threat. Knowing that her attempts at persuasion were so totally unsuccessful is perhaps the most pleasant aspect of the entire incident. Rather than driving a wedge between us, she succeeded in bringing my husband and me closer together. Totally unconcerned by her fears of social repercussions, we spent the evening joking about her texts and planning a spontaneous weekend getaway. I've come to understand that true family isn't about upholding facades or dictating stories. It's about standing together, laughing together, and supporting one another when someone tries to manipulate you, even if that someone is your own sister. I'm more certain than ever that I am better off keeping a safe distance from Molin's wedding drama. Instead of getting sucked into my family's never-ending power struggles, my husband and I have made the decision to concentrate on creating our own happiness. They say success is the best form of retaliation, but I'm coming to realize that real success isn't about impressing people. It's about accepting your own choices and surrounding yourself with individuals who encourage, rather than impede your growth. By that metric, I feel more successful than I ever have in my entire life. Underscore 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 underscore. Third update, the facade cracks. It has been 2 weeks since my sister's unsuccessful attempt to manipulate my husband, and the situation has continued to evolve in unanticipated ways. Despite my parents' increasingly desperate attempts to repair their reputation, the situation is only becoming worse for them. Through various family members who have kept me in the loop, I've learned that my parents have been on a mad quest to correct the narrative. They have been phoning each relative individually, spinning a new tale. In this version, I am a vindictive liar, spreading vile tales because I am consumed by envy over Molin's ideal wedding. They claim that I am resentful because her wedding will be far more sophisticated and gorgeous than mine was. Their most audacious claim is that I purposefully left them out of my wedding planning, so I could later play the victim. The specifics of this are almost comical. They are now asserting that I sent their wedding invitation to an old email address and an outdated physical address, despite the fact that they have lived in the same house for 30 years and have maintained the same email addresses since the invention of email. The good news is that their attempts at damage control are failing miserably. Our family members aren't buying it. In fact, their frantic efforts have had the opposite effect, prompting a cascade of truth-telling. A number of relatives have begun sharing their own personal accounts of my parents' long history of partiality. One aunt recalled how my mother had engaged in similar antics at other family weddings over the years, always maneuvering to ensure that Molin was the life of the party and that any attention given to other children was quickly redirected. The most fulfilling development has been witnessing how my extended family is finally reacting to my parents' manipulation. Several important family members, some of whom were expected to have significant roles in Molin's event, have now withdrawn their support. The ripple effects are tangible. I've heard through the grapevine that my parents may no longer have access to the exclusive wedding venue they had secured through family ties. Even a family friend's luxury garment business has suddenly experienced scheduling conflicts and can no longer provide Molin's dress. The breaking point occurred at a family gathering last weekend. It seems that when someone naively inquired about my wedding photos, my mother completely lost her composure. According to multiple accounts, she launched into a defensive tirade, accusing me of having changed after getting married and of attempting to destroy the family out of jealousy. Her public tantrum backfired spectacularly, stunning relatives who had been unaware of the full circumstances and further demolishing their carefully maintained reputation. The irony is especially thick. My parents' frantic efforts to preserve their ideal family facade are the very reason it is crumbling into dust. Each time they try to justify their absence from my wedding, they wind up disclosing more about their true selves, their pettiness, their favoritism, their inability to accept responsibility. The more they try to portray me as the villain, the more people see through their deception. Family members are now openly choosing sides, whereas before many remained impartial to keep the peace. Recently, my father's own brother, A man who had always preached silent compliance for the sake of family harmony called me to apologize. He said he was sorry for not speaking up sooner about how they had treated me throughout my life. He and his entire family have made the decision not to attend any of Molin's wedding-related festivities. I haven't had to lift a finger to facilitate any of this. I haven't made any grand speeches to the family or launched a counter-campaign. The truth is taking care of everything for me. Molin and my parents, in their desperate attempts to twist the tale, keep revealing more of their own destructive conduct. Every lie they tell to cover their tracks only exposes another layer of their deceit. My husband summed it up perfectly. They constructed a facade of the ideal family over many years, but it was built on a foundation of emotional manipulation and partiality. It was never structurally sound. Eventually, it was going to fall apart. You just stopped propping it up. Personally, I am doing better than ever. The constant, low-grade anxiety of trying to win my parents' approval has vanished. The exhausting burden of managing Molin's emotions and navigating her manipulations has lifted. I am no longer a supporting actor in the drama of their perfect family. For the first time in my life, I am free. Sometimes the best retaliation isn't a dramatic action, but simply letting the truth speak for itself. I am living my life, building a happy marriage, and focusing on my career, and that authentic happiness is the most powerful rebuttal I could ever offer. I want to thank this Reddit community from the bottom of my heart. Your support, your stories, and your unwavering encouragement gave me the strength to advocate for myself when I felt most alone. Sometimes, you need to see what true family support looks like from strangers you met online to realize what's missing in your own life. Thank you for watching this journey unfold. This chapter of my life, the chapter defined by my family's rejection, is finally closing. A new one, defined by my own choices and the love I have built, is just beginning.